I always tell my students, you are more than just this class. You are more than just a grade to me. I could care less about what you need to learn for these tests. What I'm more concerned with is how you're going to go out into the world. And so whatever I needed to do to prepare them for that, that's what I did. That was my mission. My mission and my task were those students. And now I'm on the side of, I know that that's my mission. I know that the students are my task. Now I got to go in and tackle those people who are over the students, who are over them every single day, who spend more time with them, most times more than their parents.
Welcome to the Unfiltered Minds Podcast, the only culturally diverse podcast where we discuss ways to destigmatize mental health, as well as promote self-seeking behaviors amongst our youth and family members struggling with ADHD or depression. Now, here's your host, Jane Levy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unfiltered Mind Podcast. Again, this is the platform where we discuss ways to destigmatize mental health as well as promote self-help seeking behaviors amongst our youth and their family members. I'm your host, Jane Levy. Today, I have our lovely guest, Miss Ware. She is the founder of Minds Under Construction.
Yes,
Miss
thank
Ware,
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, wonderful. So my business is Minds Under Construction. I have taught in education for over 10 years. Before teaching into education, I had a mentor group with young boys, and it flourished from there. I've always wanted to be in the place where I could help and mentor our youth, especially when it comes to just them being productive citizens of society and all that it encompasses. And so with Minds Under Construction, I do educational consulting. So I even go into the schools and teach teachers, okay, every student completely learns different. So how can we teach this student holistically and then make the learning process more individualized so that each student can learn? I also go in and do coaching on the personal side of it as well. So I coach individuals on just reaching their optimum ability and their potential. And so it has been a journey. It has been amazing. I was a school counselor for the past 3 years, and that was my focus. My focus was, how do we get these teachers to build relationships with those students so that they can be successful, especially our Black and brown boys. I taught an all-boys school in SOP 6 Fort Worth, which is, one of our little rougher areas. And then I went from teaching in a middle school on the other side of town, which was another one of our little rougher areas. And so now I know, what's all out there. I've seen it and I'm like, okay, how do we fix this? How do we make this better? And I think it starts by, one, in the education side of it, how do we build those relationships? How do we make them successful? And teaching teachers how to teach our kids holistically and understanding that, they're not all the same. They're all going to be different. And how do we make it an individualized so that all of our babies can thrive?
It's wonderful because your coaching services focus mainly on students, dedicating to fostering that personal growth, emotional well-being, and also development that essential skills. And that's
Yes.
wonderful. I know you're in the school system. Why that population though?
They're our future. If we are not putting into them now,
Mm-hmm.
where are we destined to go? I feel like there are so many things that our babies just are not getting. We know that the education system, how it is. We know that there are things that have the cultural biases that are there. We know that you have third grade scores predict how many prisons that they're going to develop in the United States by your third grade test scores. So how can I make my babies ready for this? How can I prepare them for what they're going to see out there? I always tell my students, you are more than just this class. You are more than just a grade to me. I could care less about what you need to learn for these tests. What I'm more concerned with is how you're going to go out into the world. And so whatever I needed to do to prepare them for that, that's what I did. That was my mission. My mission and my task were those students. And now I'm on the side of, I know that that's my mission. I know that the students are my task. Now I got to go in and tackle those people who are over the students, who are over them every single day, who spend more time with them most times more than their parents. And so I tell the teachers that I mentor, I'm now making you my task, because in order for them to be successful, I need to make sure that you're successful.
And that is so right because every student learn in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, when the teachers don't have those skills set to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that in the kids, our
Yes.
brown boys and black
Yeah.
kids have been labeled saying they have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you mentioned something about holistic approach. And
Yeah.
in the black and brown community, there are side effects of medication. When you said holistic approach, what does that mean?
So when you are teaching from a holistic point, it is not just the academics that comes into play. The saying is, in order for a student to grow, you have got to know. You got to know them. In
Hmm.
order for them to grow, you've got to know them. And if you do not, then how can you expect success to come academically? So when you teach from a holistic approach, you bring that student's background from home. You bring that student's background from his community. You bring in that background from the things that may have happened to him, the traumas that he's endured. You're bringing all of that. You're bringing mama and daddy and grandma and grandpa and all the aunties that are raising them. You're bringing them all in to have a conversation. How can I best approach this baby? What do I need to know to make him successful? Because when you just think about it on the academic level, you don't know if that baby watched his mom being beat yesterday. You don't know if he had food the night before. You don't know those things. So when you start to teach from a holistic standpoint, and knowing those babies, that's when the growth starts to happen. That's when you start to see things really elevating and it taking it to new heights. And that's how our babies are going to have to be taught. You cannot teach our black and brown babies without having a relationship with them.
And sometimes some of those behaviors are caused by if they have underlying issues. And you just said that,
Yes.
right? Let's look at the whole picture and see what's going on here. And then we
Yes.
can address that.
And that was one of my roles at the campus that I was at last year was if we're in a meeting and we're talking about data, I would always ask our instructional specialists, our principal, and even the teachers, you're telling me this data about this student. Tell me what happened on a day of that testing. What happened on this? What's the behavior like in the classroom? Before this test was given, even 2 days ago, 3 days ago, did you notice anything different? Have you had a conversation with the student? Have you had a conversation with mom to bring her in on anything that you've seen? And so when I started to come into the meetings and bringing that approach to it, our data started to change. We went from an F campus to an A campus in 3 years because our students felt heard, they felt seen, and they felt like people really believed in them. And that's black and brown babies.
Yeah, that's a blessing. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
got the tools. Yes, you definitely got the
Mhm.
tools and you use them as you're supposed to. You will see that difference.
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
wants to be heard, right? Yeah.
Everyone. And that's the thing. I used to tell my teachers, think about this. Just think about life. When no one's paying attention to you, you feel like you're being ignored. You get into it with your spouse or with your kids or whatever the case is. You just want somebody to listen to you. You just don't want someone to see you, to hear you. You want them to know that they're just not a number. They're not just a dollar amount that the state's giving you. It's more than just your paycheck. It
Yeah.
then becomes these babies are why I'm here. It's my mission. I've become so attached to these kids that failure is not an option.
Yeah, you can see the light at the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
As you're speaking, I can hear you're very passionate about this. You're an advocate for the youth and the younger generation. And lots of parents, though, I hear, I'm in those groups where the kids are struggling, like self help groups for therapy. And when you talk to those kids, they tell you, oh, I tell my mom or my parents that I was depressed. And they said, I'm just making an excuse. Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
the myth around that topic because when they go to school, they're going to talk to you. They're going
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
real. They are vulnerable to you. They'll
they
tell you,
are. This is what I would tell any parent. I even use this with my own kids, and I have two boys, and they are true boys. And the things that I went through as a kid and the things that you may have gone through as a kid may have been completely different. Today and age, these babies, they don't have the things that we had coming up. And on top of that, they're given so much at their fingertips. They have so much at their fingertips, so much information. So the times are completely different. The times have completely changed. So when your 12-year-old comes to you and she's crying that her boyfriend broke up with her and that she is so distraught and she is so upset and she is just, and we look at them and we're just like, girl, you'll have another boyfriend. You'll have this. You're too young to have this. That shouldn't even be an issue right now. But for her, it is.
It is.
For her little world,
Mm-hmm.
it's the end of it. For her world, it's like, why am I living? And that's the way they see it. That's how they see it. And so if we minimize their feelings and we minimize what they're going through and how they go through it and their process, then we lose them. You completely lose. I can't tell you how many times, like you mentioned, that students have come into my office and have said, my mom, she didn't listen to me and I was trying to tell her and, all these different things. And I have to call mom and I'm like, listen, I need you to pay attention to your baby. I know it seems little to you, but this is a big thing for her. This is something that right now is shaking her foundation. So parents, do not minimize their feelings. Do not minimize what they go through, because when you were younger, you would have dealt with it one way or another. Or, you weren't worried about those things, or you had the resiliency to bounce back. No, we've got to empathize with these babies and be able to give them
a safe space.
Yes, give them a safe space and meet them where they are.
Yes.
And when you come into a school, you have parents who don't recognize that. Those are your kids who are really struggling. They're really struggling because they don't feel like, one, they're not heard. You have no idea what I'm going through. Of course, as moms, we know that our kids will say, you don't know, you were too old to recognize this. They don't think we know. And so they think we can't relate to it. But if we just give them that ear and we just let them know that, hey, this is your safe spot. You're welcoming to hear it. In the back of your mind, you may be thinking, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't believe she's having a fit over some little boy and she'll have a new boyfriend next week, but this week is big.
They deserve to be happy.
They deserve to be happy. And there are so many kids who, because their parents are not listening to them and they are minimizing the feelings, that's the reason why your suicide rate in 18 and under is so high.
And substance abuse.
Mm-hmm. Because they aren't being heard. When you say this person is bullying me, I'm not getting this attention, or this person is doing whatever the case is, address it, deal with it. If you can't be that safe space, provide someone who can be a safe space for them. Give them the tools that they could use when they start to feel a certain way. Give them what they need to be successful instead of just dismissing it.
And that is so correct. Now you said something. Black boys do suffer from depression as well,
Oh, yeah.
anxiety and generational trauma, but they just don't express their sadness
Mhm.
readily as girls. What are some of the tools that you have, strategies you have at Mind Under Construction to help?
Yes, you are right. Boys, our babies do not. They don't express it because what we tend to say is, boys don't do that. Boys don't cry. Pick yourself up and dust yourself off. And those are all great things to say and all great things in theory. However, like I said, at that moment, this is how this baby feels. Those kids who have anxiety, those kids who suffer from depression, some of those tools that I like to bring to them, especially when you think about anxiety. Anxiety is triggered by something that you are thinking about that could make you, what's going to happen? How's this going to happen? What is this going to do? I don't know what's going to happen. You start to feel all jittery, and it's because you're thinking about things that are to come, that are the unknown, that makes you anxious. And so with any student, any client, even my adults, I teach them grounding techniques. How do I put you right here, right now, where you are? Because that's what's going to take you out of that headspace of the unknown. So some of the things that I do for my kids, I always keep a huge jar of Starburst in my office. And when they come in and I can see it, I can feel it, I can sense the anxiety happening on them, go get a Starburst, baby. Let's ground ourselves. And I give them texture is another thing when you have anxious babies that really works for them. So if they are having their moments of anxiety, go get your Starburst. Now I want you to slowly eat it. And they know it. I have this up in my office. They know, okay, here's what I need to have. I need to put it in my mouth. I need to taste it. I need to chew it. I need to smell it. And they focus on that. And when they focus on that, they can bring them back to right now what they're doing. I have teachers who walk into my room and they say, I need to be grounded. Okay, come on, get your Starburst. And that's what we do. And we just walk through it. But my carpet have a sensory place for especially your babies who you know who are anxious, who have those things. And how it appears in our Black boys is anger. The top thing that appears in our Black and brown boys, it comes out in anger. So I like to try to teach them, okay, what are some of the things? Let's recognize our triggers. And when we can recognize our triggers, then we can plan for when those things happen. How do we act from there? So if you are anxious, you know that something's going to happen and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Okay. So this is triggering you. How can we plan for this? How can we get our minds together for this? And always bringing them to here. If you're up here and I meet you up here, we're going to stay up here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're up here and I come down here and I'm having the conversation with you and I can soothe you into coming down and also giving you those grounding techniques, then I can help bring you down and then we can go and have the conversation. So our brain works in, if we are doing what we need to do, or if we're not upset and we are working, our top of our brain is that part that's saying, hey, this is what's going on. I need this help. I need this. I need that. This bottom part is like, oh, I got to respond. I got to respond. I got to respond. When you're upset, they can't meet each other. There's no logic. There's no talking to it. But when you can ground them and get them back to their spot, then those parts of the brain can communicate with each other. And so that makes it very helpful. One of the things that I also put a focus on is journaling your thoughts. I have several students who they have a journal and they bring it to me at the end of the day. And sometimes they'll say, Miss Ware, I want you to read it. And then I will write into the journal.
And sometimes they don't even want to take those journals home. They want to keep it at your office, right?
They do. And sometimes they'll say, Miss Ware, I don't want you to read it. I just want to let you know that I had feelings today and I wrote them down. And if they can recognize what those feelings are, and that's really what happens when we go into a depressed state, we can't recognize where we are. We have no idea where we are. And so if we can first learn to recognize those, and then we can learn to remove ourselves from the depressed state.
Wow, that's knowledge right there. And also, these kids are also going home and saying they're depressed to their parents, right? But African Americans, Black and brown people, mostly likely to share their feelings with their religious leaders and not getting professional help. So, and now we're talking about factors that can lead to mental illnesses, depression, anxiety. We're talking about genetic disposition. We're talking about biological factors, and we're talking about psychological traumas. Now, can you pray that out of depression?
It, I remember growing up and being in the church, and I remember my pastor saying, if you're depressed, it's because you're sitting there thinking about stuff too long. You need to go and leave it with the Lord. Well, I left it and I still feel like something. So what are we doing now? Like where are we at with it now? And I truly feel like, yes, I'm here for everyone who wants to seek their theology, or if they want to, seek their pastor. I'm here for that. Like, I want you to be able to do that because I will do the same. But at the same time, I want you to also recognize when growth is not happening, that God has put people in places to help you and to reach out. I read a post the other day that said self-sabotage includes not recognizing when you need help and seeking it. Don't self-sabotage yourself. Go and get the help that you need. I pray every single day. I meditate. Those are things that help me to get grounded. In the morning, I want to set the intention for the day. And I want to pray and I want to be very intentional about where I'm going. And that's something I've picked up in my faith. I get that part of it, but I also see a counselor.
A counselor needs a counselor, yeah.
A counselor, you have said a whole mouthful. A counselor needs a counselor, right? Because when I'm taking in everything, I have to have somewhere to put it out. And yes, I am taking everything in supplication and prayer. I am. But we also need those other people. We are a full community. And if I can't reach out to get help when I need help, I'm subject to fail. So don't self sabotage by just thinking, oh, I can pray, I can pray, I can pray. The Lord is wonderful. He is great. He is almighty. He can do wonderful things. Seek help as well, because He has given people the tools that you need in order to be successful.
Yeah. To add to that, you're in the mental health field. How
Mhm.
important is self care to mental health?
The same way you go to the doctor for your physical every year, the same way when you get on the treadmill because you want to have cardio health, and the same way that you would go and to the dentist when your tooth is hurting, you've got to take care of your mental health. You've got to take care of your mental health. Your mental health has got to be just as important as your annual physical. And I think a lot of times we confuse self care and self maintenance. I love going to the spa. I
Mhm.
absolutely positively love it. The 4th of July, that's what I did. I had a whole spa day. That was my self maintenance. I was relaxing. I got my massage. I got my nails done. I got my feet done. That was self maintenance. But when I think about self care, that's me thinking about what happened in this situation. How can I improve on this situation? And how can I make sure that I'm successful the next time that this happens? That's me being reflective of my day and completely being intentional. When I do my self care in the morning, when I wake up before I wake my boys up or before it's time for them to go to school, and I am reading my Bible and I'm writing in my journal and I am setting my intentions for the day and stating my affirmation for the day. That's my self care. That's me making sure that I'm going to be okay for today. And in the event that something happens, I know how to center myself. My self care looks like that. Your self care may be something that could be different. I
Yeah.
know also throughout the middle of the workday, I have self care moments. I plan them on my calendar and I call it refocus and recharge. It's on my calendar 2 times a day because I don't know what's going to arise. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that I might have to come back to center. So if we go too far to the left, we go too far to the right, we may be going a little off. And
Yeah.
so we have to learn that self care helps you to get to center.
And somebody's watching this today. We have this myth around therapy when say professional therapy
Mhm.
is not for Black people. I experienced divorce 2016 and therapy helps
Yes.
greatly. And so
Yes.
I can only speak for myself. What would you say to someone who thinks
Yeah.
therapy is only for white people, like
No.
Black and brown people?
Therapy is for us. We need it. What we tend to do is take our generational traumas and continue to push them forth and push them forth and push them forth. And we have no idea why we're doing the things that we're doing. We did it because that's what my mama did, that's what grandmama did, and that's what her mom did. Not knowing that we are continuing to push on and perpetuate the stigma and the trauma that's happening. Go seek counseling. I think that it is the most important thing that you can do for yourself. Not only yourself, if you aren't even thinking of you, because sometimes we, especially as Black women, we will put on our superhero cape and think that we can take over the entire world and the world that we have created, and we don't take care of ourselves.
You take care of
Sometimes we
everybody
have,
else, but
yeah,
you got to take care of yourself. And then you
yeah.
just get a mental breakdown.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to take that cape off. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be very transparent here. In 2009, I lost my mom. For me, that was, whew, it was devastating. As I grew up, the only child by my mom, I was shook. I was young. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what the effect would be. And to me, I was always taught by my mom, oh, you're strong. You can do anything. You can make anything happen. You always wear your cape. You never let anyone see you sweat because that's how she was raised.
Hmm.
And that's how her mother was raised. And so she continued that on. And it got so bad to where I fully went into a depression and no one even knew because I had a mask on when I stepped outside of my house. And then once I got back in, I took my mask off. It wasn't until I said, you know what? I'm going to go be a counselor. And being a counselor requires you to get counseling.
Yes.
So I go in and this lady, she's like, okay, so what do you want to start with? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just here so I can meet the requirements so I can get my degree and we can move on. And she's like, okay, well, tell me about how you grew up. Tell me. And she's going into it. And And I was just like, I am a strong Black woman. I am this. And I'm telling her all this. And she was like, oh, okay, well, tell me about your relationships. And I'm telling her, she's like, okay, so how's that working for you? And she was a young white girl. She said, how's that working for you? I said, what you mean? She was like, you've told me about this relationship, and this. How are you any better because of the way that you've acted with these relationships? And I was like, oh, okay. She really calling me out. I got to come to the carpet now.
Yeah.
It was the best experience for me. It truly taught me, one, how to set boundaries to protect my peace. It taught me that no was a complete sentence. It taught me it's okay to have an emotion, and it's okay to express your emotion, because your strength comes in protecting yourself and also being able to say when you feel a certain way about something. And so I learned so much from going through counseling. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I want to really help people reach that level, to reach where they are. Now, I'm here all the time. Mm-mm, mm-mm. My peace is at the utmost paramount of my life because
Yes.
I'm here. I know how to get here.
You're going to protect it as best as you can.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
at all costs. If I sense that you are trying to disturb or interrupt my peace, I will remove myself from the situation because I know what it's like to be in that state, and I'm never going back. Now that I've been here, there's no turning back from that. And so I got valuable tools in therapy and seeing my counselor. One of the things, though, that I would say is, and I always advise, when you are seeking counseling and you are going to get a therapist or going to get a therapist, make sure that you seek someone who is not like you,
That's
who
actually
may
my
not.
question.
Mhm.
You're
Oh, yeah.
ahead. You're going ahead. We'll get to that. We'll get to that question. You mentioned about expressing your emotions. What are some
Mhm.
healthy ways that
Yes.
we can express our emotions, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you're
So,
talking about cultural
yes.
background,
Yes.
spiritual background. So you have these kids, they want to express themselves to their parents, but they don't have that opportunity. What are some healthy ways that these kids can express themselves to their parents and don't
Yeah.
come across as being disrespectful?
Yes. And that's the big thing. I teach my students how to advocate for themselves. And I tell them, I'm not always going to be here to advocate for you. And so when I say advocation, I want you to start using, I teach the I statements. You are not putting blame on anyone because you felt some way. I want you to be able to use that. I want you to go to your teacher, Mr. Smith. When you said X, Y, and Z this way to me, I felt disrespected. I felt upset. I felt embarrassed. The next time, could you please move me to the side and have the conversation with me? I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad when you're advocating for yourself and you're using that I statement. Because I'm telling you, this action made me feel this way. And because I feel like this and I don't want to feel like this, here's how I want you to handle me the next time.
That is wonderful. And you just mentioned also, you were talking about vetting a therapist. The therapist pool, it's not
Mhm.
culturally diverse. There's not a lot of
Mhm.
black and brown therapists.
You're right.
And you hear this a lot. I talk to a lot of girls or a lot of boys, youth. They said, well, we like going to therapy, but we can't find a black therapist. They're looking for a specific black
Mhm.
therapist, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I always say this, get somebody that is culturally diverse, right? It
Mm-hmm.
necessarily does not have to be because everyone cannot have a therapist that look like them, that look like their mama and they've been through
Mm-hmm.
what they've been through. So what
Yeah.
is your advice for them? You just started answering that question. Well, how would
Yeah.
they vet a therapist?
And you're right. You do want to have someone who is the term culturally responsive. You
Mhm.
want to have someone who can identify. Just because you are a white woman does not mean that you cannot have empathy for me. It does not mean that you cannot understand where I'm coming from. It does not mean our skin color is not changing that. But when you can look at it from my point of view and then offer suggestions on how to get somewhere and also educate yourself enough about my culture, ask me enough questions, ask me about my background. That's how we can make this bond. I can start to grow in your presence because now I know that I'm not just sitting here for 60 minutes and you're just going to talk to me and then I'm just going home. Now I know that you're invested in me. My little white lady I had was amazing. They asked me, they said, would you prefer a man or a woman? And I was like, I don't care. I'm just coming to get my time. They never asked about race. They just asked about man or woman. And I walked in and I saw this little white girl and I said, what is she going to do with me? What is she going to do? What is she doing? And she called out a lot of things. And she says, okay, that's what you went through? Gosh, that was very traumatic. And I was like, no, it wasn't. She was like, tell me how you felt after that.
Because you didn't
You
even
know,
know what was normal.
yeah, I didn't know because culturally,
Yes,
we
that's
pass on these traumas and these things that have happened to us and think, oh, that's just what we do in the Black culture. Like, that's just who we are. Like, that's just what it is. And she'd say, oh, that was very traumatic. And I'm thinking, no, it wasn't. I wasn't traumatized by that. And she was like, oh, okay, so let's peel it back. Oh, I'm like, oh, that wasn't normal. Like, you shouldn't do those things.
yes.
And she helped me to recognize it because she was able to be outside of me and recognize what normalcy is.
Mm-hmm.
But because I had lived in the trauma and I had been in the trauma, I hadn't recognized that it was trauma. I thought that was just regular life.
It was normal.
It was normal. It was normal. And we will normalize the heck out of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
We will normalize it. And I was doing the same thing. And she called me out on it. And she was like, oh, that's traumatic.
What did they call that? Trauma bonding with other
Yeah.
people? Yeah. They said,
Well,
girl, I
when you have other people, yes.
yes.
But really, and it's that it's not even necessarily the trauma bonding. It is the I don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any better.
When you know better, you do better,
You
right?
know better, you do better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
And it's because I don't see it.
when my son was diagnosed with ADHD, I said to myself, "What is ADHD?" So what I did, I just started listening to podcasts, going to seminar, going to the CDC website, and I learned so much. And that's why I'm even able to even have a platform where I can say, you know what? Let's have a lot of representation. Let's talk. Let's share our experiences so people will know that they're not alone. Instead of just not having the treatment, not going for therapy, the kids
Mhm.
are struggling and they later
Yeah.
end up anxiety, depression. Let's have a platform where I'm going to share my story. Hey, look, I'm not embarrassed about it. Because I asked my son, I say, would you want me to share your story? He said, of course. This is
Yeah.
why he told me everybody has ADHD. I said,
It was like I see my friends acting the same way I act.
he said,
Like, what you
everybody.
mean? You
Yes,
just gave me some letters.
yes, yes,
Yeah, and that is very true. I have a baby who has been diagnosed with ADHD, and I tell him all the time, it doesn't make you anything different. There's nothing different about you. Just like with anything, if a person has allergies, before they go outside, they're going to take their Claritin.
yes.
If a person has knee problems and their knee is hurting, they're going to take their pain medication.
Hmm.
If I have heart problems, I'm going to make sure I take my heart medicine. High blood pressure, I'm going to make sure I take my high blood pressure medication. I am going to make the accommodations I need to make in order for me to be successful.
Yeah.
So, whatever your letters are, if it's whatever, I always tell my kids, those letters, I get it. I understand. I'm here. Now let's figure out how do we go from here. Let's figure out what your medicine is. Your medicine is okay, you have ADHD, so let me make sure that I'm standing by you. Let me make sure that you're sitting next to the teacher. Let me make sure that
Accommodations. Yeah.
yeah, let me give you those accommodations, but not only just giving them the accommodations, because a lot of the accommodations for ADHD are just best practices when you are being a good and thorough teacher. Let me just state that. There are best practices when you are being a good and thorough teacher. However, that's where that comes in for that individualized platform for those babies to be successful. I understand that with my son who has been diagnosed with ADHD, when I need for him to do something, I need to set a timer for him when he's sitting there doing his homework because he will fly off into some planet. I don't know where he goes, but it's not on homework. And so, all right, so now I'm going to give you the tools you need in order to be successful. And that works.
But you
And
know,
that works.
only knew the tools because you educate yourself on those tools.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And that's it. And even, when my students come or parents come, oh, my kid has ADHD. And okay, we do best practices here. We do best practices. We make sure that every kid, no matter who they are or what letters come behind their name, are getting what they need in order to be successful. But what I do understand is that not every school is going to do that. So we're going to write this on legal paper. And anything that I'm doing that's not on this legal paper, we're going to add it to the legal paper. So that when he goes to the next school, or when she goes to the next school, those facilities know how to individualize the education plan for your baby.
You just mentioned something, right? In the African community culture,
Mhm.
when you say you're going to put on a piece of paper, you know what that means to us?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's going to be on their record. They will never be successful.
And I don't get it. It's help.
Yes.
It's accountability. It's making sure that my baby has what he needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's me putting the idea of, we used to say, oh, they rode the short bus. We got to take that out. Like, it's not funny because my baby needs to be successful. So what can I do to make him successful? What I'm not going to do is allow for you to say, oh, you don't want to put your baby having an IEP or a 504 plan. They're just going to tag him in the schools and that's going to be bad for him. We don't need to do that. No, I'm going to do what I need to do for my baby.
Yes.
And I've had parents who have said, Miss Ware, I am not putting my baby on. He's not going to be in special ed. He's not going to do this. Okay. So what I hear you saying is that you don't want your baby to be successful. What I hear you saying is you don't want to hold the people who are responsible for his education accountable for his learning. And they're like, what do you mean? Yeah.
Because that's when
There
you
has
have
to
a
be an
plan in
accountability.
place.
Mhm. And I want to say to parents who have students who have 504s and IEP, learn your rules, learn the law, learn what you can and cannot do, learn what your schools can and cannot do. Learn everything that you need to learn about your child's disability and who's there to offer services for your baby. Learn all of those things because that's going to be important because you have to be your child's biggest advocate.
Yes.
My youngest baby, when he goes to school at the same campus that I was at, and I would go walk in and say, okay, I'm taking off my counselor hat. I am now his mama. And that's what I would have to do. I am his advocate.
Yes.
I am teaching him the tools that he needs in order to be successful. And I'm teaching him the I statements and I'm teaching him to recognize. And, when you are feeling frustrated because you can't get something because your mind has gone somewhere else, how do we get you back there?
Yes.
And it's crazy because he can stand right in front of you and tell you, oh, I need to do this, 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 and that, because this is my trigger. And then go and do the opposite. Oh, okay.
He
All
forgets.
right.
He forgets.
Just forget. But the fact that the small steps, we want to get them to where they need to be. But yes, be your baby's advocate. Know your laws. Know what you need to know about your child's disability. Know about the services that are out there to help your baby to be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. You do offer educational coaching in the school system,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
also offer a personal one-on-one coaching. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So in the educational platform of it, again, I go in and I talk to our mentor and coach teachers, but I also do it with parents. So those parents who have kids with 504s and IEP, they will call and say, okay, Miss Ware, I need help. I don't know what to do. My baby's still not being successful and no one's helping me. I know what we can do. I can be your advocate for you. And so those are some of the things that I will coach with parents on: how to go and do this, how to write your letters, how to go and talk to your board, what conversations need to be had in order for your baby to be successful. But then I also coach and mentor on and consult with the students as well. So I have students that I work with who are transitioning from high school to college. I have them for a 2-year period of time because those are hard
Very
times.
hard transition.
Yeah, very hard. But I'm one of those too who I like to get that in the school district. We call them the tier 3 kids. Those are the kids who are at risk. Those are the kids who have failed everything. Those are the kids who have behavior issues. Those are the babies I like to get. Those are the babies that I like to touch because I know that I can build those relationships with them. And they know that I care for them. And they know that I want the best for them. And those babies I can work magic with. But then also on the personal side of it, when I do coaching for adults or students or, kiddos, it is always what an individualized plan. What do you want? Where do you want to go? If you are here and you feel like you are stuck, tell me the life that you want to have, and I'm going to help you create a plan to get there. What do we need to do? If you have issues with having unhealthy boundaries, been there, done that. got a book for it. Like, if you have issues with having those unhealthy boundaries, I can help you to create those boundaries. If that is in relationships, being romantic or platonic, at the workplace, I have become the guru, the self-proclaimed guru of setting boundaries. And that's one of the things that your boundaries, not having healthy boundaries, will lead to depression and anxiety. That is the leading thing, because you get to get overworked. I'm saying yes to everything. I want to please people.
People
I don't
pleasing.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
pleasing.
And
Yeah.
that leads to it. And so I help individuals who are just transitioning. I don't know where I'm going career wise. I don't know where I'm going life wise. Okay, let's draw a picture for it. People who deal with anxiety, people who deal with depression, if you grief and loss, all those things that I've done the work on, and now I want to help others do the work on.
I see, because you went through grief when you lost your mom.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yes, I actually, as a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago today, lost my stepmom as well. And so I had already written a grief journal because one of my friends said, I need something because I've experienced this loss and I need something to help me. And I was like, okay, well, I can put something together. I can, I've been there, done that. I'll do that. And I went and I did it, finished it on that Tuesday night. And that Wednesday morning, she passed away. And I'm like, okay. Well, let's go through this journal. And that's what I've been doing. I've been going through the journal. I've been going through the work and re-stepping it. And so the journal has prayer aspect in it because I believe in it. But it also has that reflective part of it. How do we, if this is our thought and this is what we're doing, I want to have an affirmation and be intentional about my thought process. And then I want to create a plan. It has a process in there. How do I create the plan to be successful and to go through this grief? Because we can't just wake up and just say, all right, grief, you do what you want to do today.
No,
It doesn't work that way. And so we have to be intentional about it because it will sneak up on you
it
and
does.
it will have you in a state of, oh my goodness, and so we want to be very intentional about staying on top of our grief and being very reflective. It's going to happen. You're going to have some really awful days and there are going to be some awful minutes, or there are going to be some, awful half days, but we want to be able to reset and refocus and, how can I get through this? How can I make it through and be okay? And so that's what my grief affirmational journal helps with. And it talks about the stages of grief and it takes you step by step of what it looks like, but knowing also that it's different for everybody.
Is that available for people to purchase or?
It is. It is on Amazon right now. Yes. So I have that one. And I also have an affirmational journal that is just for daily life. One talks about that self-care and self-maintenance, knowing the difference, and helps you be intentional about your day. So it walks you through creating a morning routine, creating a midday routine, a night routine. It walks you through your daily affirmations and creating plans to be successful for that day. And it just gives you a sense of, okay, I can do this. I can get here. If I have a plan, I know I can stay grounded. So it's a really great process. My best friend just got hers in the mail last week and she says, oh my goodness, this is a game changer. I was like, I told you, there's some
I'm
good
gonna
stuff in there.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yes,
Definitely.
please do. Please
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. So that brought us to our last question. Black and brown communities have the lowest rate of healthcare insurance. What are some tips for accessing low cost insurance? Because sometimes they want to go to therapy, but they can't afford it.
Yes, you're right. So, one of the things that a lot of the employers are doing is having an employee plan now that's
Mhm.
outside of the insurance,
Okay.
where they are really thinking about the mental health of individuals that work with their corporations. And so, a lot of them are offering 7 and 8 sessions for free.
Okay.
So look into your employer, see what employee plans that they have available for just that. Because a lot of them are starting to do it just with the whole wave of information and the whole turn and recognizing the importance of mental health. But then also go to your community centers. I know in our area, we have a community action center that helps parents. It helps anybody in that community access therapy or anything. whatever they could need, from diapers to, needing food, whatever. But mental health is one of the things that they also help with. So finding community partners that will help with that, that are just in your community. And then also seeking the support of family members. Sometimes you can't afford to have the $50 to $100 per session, but you can go and find someone has maybe been in the position that you have been in, that can mentor you and help you along the way. I always say that don't ever be the smartest person in the room, because where's your growth?
Yes.
Find you somebody who can help you. Find you someone who can coach you through the things that you're doing or the things that you're going through. And those are just some of the things that you can look into. But definitely, if you're working, check with those corporations to see what plans they have for mental health, because a lot of them have it outside of the insurance plans. And then even your community hospitals, they oftentimes will do group sessions for free.
Appreciate you sharing that. Any words of encouragement for anyone struggling with mental illness or caring for somebody with mental illness?
Yes. If you are struggling with mental illness, find you someone who can help you. Understand that you are not the only person. You are not the only one going through it. And a lot of times we don't want to seek it because we're embarrassed. And the moment that we bring up, this is what I'm dealing with, you start to hear oh, me too. Oh, I went through that a couple of years ago. Recognize your community. Reach out for that help. You are not alone. Use your family. Use your community. And we know family is not just blood. It's not just the people who are in your bloodline, but those people who are rooting for you, who want you to be successful, who are invested in your life and the success of it. Use those people. Use those people. And if you do have insurance, if you find you a therapist, find you someone you can talk to. Understand that mental health is just as important as your physical health. The same way that you are doing your checkups with your doctor, the same way you are brushing your teeth in the morning is the same way you have to be intentional about your mental health and protecting your peace.
Ms. Ware, thank you so much for your time today. And we hope that the information you've shared here today, our viewers and our listeners will resonate those stories and use those resources, those tools to help them to get better. And thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate you having this platform for us. You are doing a great work. So congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Likewise, thank you. To our viewers, we want to say thank you again for your time.
Thank you for listening to Unfiltered Minds Podcast. If you love what you're learning on our podcast, we ask that you please join the Unfiltered Minds community by subscribing and sharing our podcast on YouTube, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Our dedicated team of ADHD coaches are committed to making a positive impact on the lives of our listeners. Through our thought-provoking podcast, we offer valuable resources, PBT training for ADHD, and a supportive community that understands the journey of mental health challenges. Also, you can visit our website at theunfilteredminds.com, where you can sign up to be a guest on our podcast, as well as sign up for our 8-week parent behavior training course on ADHD.